Welcome to SFH Presents One More Podcast.
Welcome to SFH Presents One More Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Polk, here with my co-host, Ty Southern. Today we have Jeanine Galusha. Is that how you say that for sure?
Yeah.
Did I say it right? Fuck yeah, I nailed it. And I normally say we're not medical professionals, but she's actually a medical professional somewhat. I don't know if is that what you qualified it as, I suppose?
Yeah, we fall under the heading of medical professionals.
Okay.
Just not an MD.
Right. Yeah, different, I suppose, but
Yeah.
still impressive either way. We'll get into that here shortly. First, let me ask you the big question. What does still fucking here mean to you?
It means through all the adversity, through all the bullshit, through everything you go through in life, you're still moving forward.
I love it. That seems to that's the simplest, most on point. No fat. You didn't have to trim anything off of that.
I'm very succinct.
I like it.
Clear and concise.
All the time.
So getting straight to what your title is, what you actually do with that, with your training, with your education, with your job position, would be a good place to start.
Okay. So I have a doctorate in clinical psychology. And as we all know, psychologist is kind of the person you think of. They were trained to assess, diagnose, and treat a variety of clinical disorders and mental health conditions. Oftentimes we will administer various tests to do that. Beyond that, I actually did a lot of this in my training as well, but I completed a 2-year postdoctoral fellowship in clinical neuropsychology. And so as a neuropsychologist, we're trained as clinical psychologists first, but then we go on to do a postdoc where we learn more about how the brain works and the brain disorders, things like intellectual disability, autism spectrum disorders, but also things like dementia, Alzheimer's, Lewy body, things like that. So the first part of my role is to determine, is there a brain disorder present? And then by using a variety of objective tests to determine if that brain disorder impacts an individual's functioning. So we all know about traumatic brain injury, right? We've all heard of that, especially like a mild traumatic brain injury where there are no findings on imaging. But we know that a number of people don't make a full recovery in that. So cognitive testing can really go a long way to helping understand, that's great that their imaging is fine and structurally the brain is intact, but functionally there are issues, right? And so that's what neuropsychology does. That's our role, is to help determine how that brain disorder is impacting an individual's functioning. Now, I also, because I'm a glutton for punishment, I did a dual postdoc. So I also completed a postdoctoral fellowship in forensic psychology and forensic neuropsychology. So as a forensic psychologist, I'm a professional, obviously trained in psychology, and I apply this knowledge to legal issues. Regardless of who you were hired by, our job is to focus on understanding and explaining psychological aspects that are relevant to a case, and to always remain as an unbiased expert witness. So I have no skin in the game on how it turns out, whether I'm hired by prosecution, defense, civil, in civil cases, plaintiff, or the defense side. The goal is to present an unbiased, objective opinion. So the only thing I will ever advocate for is my data and my opinion in a case. And we're utilized in a lot of different ways. So when you think general forensic psychology, things like competency to stand trial, not guilty by reason of insanity, speaking to the mental state at the time of the offense. But other parts of our role, like explaining how trauma affects behavior, how can that manifest and cause, kids to behave in a way that they look quote unquote bad, when really what's driving it is the hyperarousal and emotional discontrol we see in things like PTSD. So that's how I apply my psychology background in a legal context. So I don't do any treatment anymore. I'm strictly an expert witness, but I do still provide consultation to law enforcement in mental health, wellness, and resiliency. So I have kind of a special passion about first responders and their mental health and wellness.
Wow, that's amazing.
So why?
We've had several first responders on just to get into the psychology of, when they, especially the ones that have been on. I think there was a guy that was the firefighter who had talked about your first emotional death like where you go through this one thing that you kind of linger on, and then you sort of like numb to the, like it's fascinating. I don't think human beings are necessarily built to really do this shit.
They're not. I mean, I started out, my first career was in law enforcement. So I started out as a police officer. And from there, I was in law enforcement. I became a hostage negotiator and a mental health peace officer. And that's where I found my love for psychology and my interests. Left law enforcement, went back to school. While I was in school, I was also a parole officer. So I've been on a lot of different sides of the criminal justice system and have, I think, a pretty intimate view of it at this point.
Hell yeah.
But,
many different hats.
Yeah. But certainly, like, as humans, we're not meant to experience that type of repeated trauma.
Yeah, I would say repeated. I would say it's going to happen to everybody. Death and taxes. But yeah, the prolonged and repeated is, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a problem.
Short circuit real quick.
Well, it's something that's pretty dear to me, and the idea of that mental health still holds such a stigma in society, where it's gotten better. And then there's also the flip side.
Taking a turn.
The flip side to it getting better, though, is that now you have, millions of undiagnosed people self-diagnosing themselves on TikTok, which is you're kind of hurting how the movement is headed in a positive direction with that shit.
Yeah.
This is something I brought up a different time, and it's easy. It would be easy to misunderstand what I'm saying here, but even when I'm watching like Chris Hansen, and I see someone watch the life drain from their face when he walks out, I feel empathy. I think it's a horrific thing that's happening. Like that can't. I realize the ramifications of what they're doing, but I also have always had this point of like trying to look at people as that they used to be a kid. You used to be a baby, and whatever things you went through. I mean, it could be DNA based. It could be something in just a mutation and a difference in your body than your parents. It could be my brothers and sisters are very different from me, raised in the same house, raised in the same environment, had the same upbringing in the same schools, but your friends, the people around you, how you're treated, all these different factors go into making a person, and add in, countless trauma for most people. It's like, so you see someone in that state, I always have this feeling of like, fuck, like they have to go away, but also I feel terrible for them.
Yeah.
So it puts me in that headspace thinking about prisoners and people that go to prison, where you like know that there's certain shit, especially violent crimes. There's also the aspect of like people doing things out of desperation when they're hungry or when they're, you know what I'm saying? There's other situations of being poor and having to do something. It's like, it's not so easy to just go, that guy's bad. And I think it's the way a lot of society looks at people who are in prison or have been to prison.
Yeah, and certainly my views on that have evolved as I have grown in just the education I've received and the people I've interacted with. One of the things you mentioned is like, I don't ever look at people and say, this person is bad, right? So we're all worth more than the worst thing we have ever done. And that's a Brian Stevenson quote. And I truly, truly believe that. I spend many of my days sitting across from individuals who've been charged with very heinous crimes. They're accused of capital murder, potentially multiple murders. And they oftentimes don't look like me, right? I'm a white female. Most of the individuals I'm interacting with are usually people of color and oftentimes are males. And I have learned, to be quite honest, I have learned more from them, I think, than I could ever give back. When you mention about trauma and this intersection between nature and nurture, right? We always talk about that. We are, of course, we have genes. We can't do anything about that piece of it.
Right.
But nature, that the nurturing part of that definitely shapes us. So there was a landmark study done in California on adverse childhood experiences. And there's these 10 different factors they found that the more of these boxes you checked, the more, they were associated with a number of negative outcomes: occupational problems, mental health difficulties, substance use, criminal behavior. And the adverse childhood experiences, if you've never heard of it, these are things like physical, sexual, and emotional abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect, separation of your parents, so divorce, a family member who's gone to prison, violence against the mother, so domestic violence. I'm trying to think of the rest. Anyway, so it's a number of these adverse, mental health difficulties in the household and substance use in the household. There was another study that expanded this and looked at some of the society stuff, so like growing up in a violent neighborhood, experiencing discrimination. And so one of the things with kids is like they are powerless to extract themselves from a negative environment, right? Unfortunately, a lot of my cases right now involve 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. These are young people. And if you're charged with capital murder in the state of Texas, there are two options: death, life without parole. That's it. That's it. And so once death is waived, you go to trial. If you are found guilty on capital murder, you are going to prison for the rest of your life, period.
The end.
And when we look at this in like an adolescent population, because the brain isn't fully developed until about 25, what we see with these kids, even the kids who have had all these adverse childhood experiences, is that antisocial behavior tends to peak in adolescence and then decrease across the lifespan. So that individual, and we can all think about that, right? Think about when you were 18, 19 or younger and what kind of jackassery you did. Sensation-seeking behavior, risk-taking behavior, all of that is very common in that age group.
Getting blown up.
Right, see, things like that, But we don't think about long-term consequences when we're that age. But we do prioritize short-term gains, that dopamine hit you get when you do something, a little bit crazy. Those things are prioritized in that population. And then also those individuals are going to be locked up for a much longer period of time. So those are some of the things that I can help educate a judge and a jury on when I go to court, but also helping people understand what is the impact of trauma. So I've had cases with veterans who have been accused of murder. And then we talk about things like PTSD and hyperarousal and the overestimation of threat. Some of the things that kind of make PTSD what it is, that those are survival things that kept you alive maybe when you were deployed, noticing things like a trash bag on the side of the road or a person who's moving a little bit oddly and they're taking a phone out of their pocket. That might have saved your life there. Now, but you're back in the US, right? And you're seeing these things happen and you're objectively safe, but your brain is still firing off like you are not safe. And so helping to understand that physiological arousal and that we're not defined by that one event, however egregious it is, right? However bad it is. And I feel incredibly lucky to get to tell individual stories. So I help put people in context. Instead of you looking at the mugshot on TV and be like, oh my God, this person, they killed 4 people. I help a judge and a jury to understand the contextual factors in which this person resides. Sometimes it's all about trauma. Oftentimes it is. That's one of the things I've noticed is kind of the tie that binds in a lot of these defendants is they have a history of awful, awful trauma. I mean, things that are happening in the world, but when you're confronted by it, you're blown away that they're missed by CPS. They're missed by the school system. They get through, 8 or 9 years of education. They're intellectually disabled. It's never been identified. They're bullied. I mean, just so many opportunities for intervention that just never occurred. And so helping people understand, like, yes, they committed a murder. Nobody's saying let them walk away, right? Nobody's saying we shouldn't hold them accountable, but maybe we can understand their trajectory from point A to point B.
Yeah. And help. I mean, the majority of the criminal cases that come to mind when I think of the more egregious ones are people who deserves not the right word either, but ultimately deserve help for the ailments that they have. Mental trauma causes a lot of that. And being thrown away for life at 17 is kind of bananas when you say it like that. And then, because who's the same person they were by 25?
Or 30.
Literally, middle of your 20s, you're already a whole different person than you were in your late teens. But at the same time, capital murder in 10 years or capital murder in 20 years, it's still, the optic of it is not wonderful, but also rehabilitation doesn't need to just be thrown away and lose the key. Rehabilitation should be therapies and rehabilitation. Right.
And we should, especially when we're talking about adolescents. So anecdotally, when I was a parole officer, I had a couple of individuals that come to mind who had committed so one guy it was a self-defense case. He was attacked by 2 men. He killed one of them. But this was during a time where you had a duty to retreat. And so he was found guilty of murder, and he went to jail, I think, probably 20 or 30 years. He was also poor, right? So that's a factor. And he was Black, also a factor. And so when this gentleman came out of prison, if I had told him to go stand in a corner and hold his arms over his head, and that's what parole required, he would have done it, right? Like he was and he will be on parole till the day he dies.
Yeah.
Like he is going to do every single thing they ask him.
Indoctrinated.
Yeah, but he also wants to be free. Like he never wants to go back to jail.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was wrongfully there as far as I'm duty to retreat. Kiss what's left of my fucking ass. Sorry.
Another
that state.
No, of course. another gentleman who was a white male, and he even told me he had committed several aggravated robberies. He was like, I was a piece of shit. I went exactly where I should have gone. I should have gone to prison. I needed to go to prison. I deserved to go to prison. But then he got out. Again, he's on parole forever till the day he dies. He bought his own tractor, or like tractor trailer. He started his own trucking company. And again, he was another individual who's going to do anything he had to do to preserve his freedom. The sad part was when the parole office, like the office of parole, would just throw these ridiculous requirements on him just to make it really had the feel, these are not evidence-based things, right? This is, you must attend one AA meeting a month. Why? He's never been an alcoholic. He has no history of alcohol abuse. But he had told somebody at one point he drank alcohol. So, like, it's not even evidence-based, and you're making things more difficult for this man who's doing everything he can to be successful.
Yeah.
And so that's how my evolution has happened. Like, you see these things that you're like, but why are we doing that?
So I learned more about it then, and now I'm doing something about it.
It seems like much of it is, and it's kind of this way, especially when it comes to anything within, and I guess you could put the court system under the government. Mm-hmm. It seems like everybody's just a number. There's no personal, even the schools, even the education system, is that everyone's just a number. You're just a file in, do your shit. We're going to throw it out. There's no individual treatment for almost anything, where it should be individualized. And if that guy doesn't have a problem with alcohol, that shouldn't be a part of what he has to do. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah. It needs to be individualized. The other thing is, like, when you think about the services that are not available to people, right? So there's been a big push, and I don't blame clinicians who don't accept insurance. It is a real hassle to get on insurance boards, deal with low reimbursement rates, all the ICD coding. Thank God I don't have to know anything about it. But it is a hassle for them. And so a lot of individuals no longer take insurance, psychologists, therapists, psychiatrists. And one issue with that is you have a huge part of our population will not have access to those services. There's just no way the average human, in Dallas, I think you need about an $80,000 a year to live because rent and everything is skyrocketed. How are you going to afford $200, $250 an hour for a session?
Right.
And do that every week, because most evidence-based treatment is meant to be weekly. Now, you're poor, you live in an impoverished neighborhood, your parents are barely able to keep food on the table. You don't have any Medicaid providers. Good luck.
Yeah.
Texas is like 51st in the nation for mental health funding. We're doing really well.
It's a terrible scenario for everybody. I'm a person that definitely needs therapy of some type, and I can't afford it. It's not in my budget, man. So I just struggle through it and try to figure out as much as I can on my own. And I think that's
unfortunate.
Yeah.
And I've only had bad experiences with therapy, so I usually I'm just in here talking and you're just nothing. Or I had one woman almost scoff at something I said, and I was just like, "Oh, okay,
we're done.
Full done talking to you."
So
and it was an epiphany. It was the fact that I said it out loud was hard enough, and then she was just like,
"But treat you that way."
Yeah, she gave me does that even make sense, bro? Was the whole vibe of her response, and I was just like, "Oh, rad."
I'm really sorry for that experience, because I of course never served in the military, so I don't have that. I certainly don't have any deployments, but I was a police officer, and just admitting that you even need to talk to somebody is a huge deal. Stigma or no stigma. But when you wear a uniform, that's a big deal. Yeah. And so one of the things that I've done in my work with police officers is I try to keep a list of providers that are culturally competent. I never want a police officer to have that experience, because you'll turn somebody off therapy forever.
Ever.
Yeah.
Like
I've tried a few times, and I'm three times wasn't the charm.
Yeah, like I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah, and only one of them was VA. The original one. I said what I said, and she all but laughed at me. And then I was like, cool, can I work with someone else next time? And tried to schedule it. They let me schedule it. Then they canceled it and said I wanted to cancel it. And I was like, that's not true, but bye.
I mean, the amount of, I think, recidivism and criminal behavior that we could address with mental health treatment is tremendous.
What is that? What does that mean?
Recidivism, reoffending.
Oh, thank you. I was like,
sorry about that.
Flag on the play. I need.
but yeah, I mean, if we just addressed it, so if you have somebody who's behaviorally discontrolled because they've had so much trauma, right? They're always on they're hyper vigilant, they're hyper alert, always on edge. You tend to be irritable because you're always ramped up, and then they overreact because somebody confronts them and they punch them, and now they have an assault charge. Mm-hmm. What if we had addressed all of that on the front end, right? And treated that behavioral discontrol and emotional discontrol that stemmed from their trauma, then we wouldn't have them here. It's exactly the premise behind VA courts, right? Why do we have VA courts? Because we recognize, the society recognized that you have unique experiences, and those experiences can eventually lead to criminal behavior if they're not addressed. Substance abuse, DWIs, things like that.
Very slow coming. Part of the separation, like steps and taps and all the stuff you do as you're about to get out. Yeah. They give you like PowerPoints and stuff on all of the things, like, and it's over like a 4-day period where you're just like, I have to do this, so they'll actually sign the papers kind of thing. Yeah. So it's very, I told you, like they give you the bare minimum of information, and then that one's the door. You want it out. Bye.
Yeah. Bye. So Tarrant County has the very first public safety employees treatment court. It's the very first court in the nation modeled after the Veterans Treatment Court. And it takes in any first responders. There have to be agreements, just like with the Veterans Court, between the DA, defense attorney, and the judge. The judge who runs that court is Judge Vanover. He is also former first responder, and he runs one of the vet courts as well. But it's a program. It's like an 18-month program they have to go through in order to have their charges dismissed. But they go a step further, because police officers in the state of Texas, if you're convicted of anything over a Class C, so if you get a DWI, you lose your license. Like, you can never be a police officer again. And so this is the very first diversion court where they can expunge their record and they continue with their career.
Wow.
And again, they're not taking high-level charges, right? These are things like, most of them are DWIs.
Yeah.
And we just recently published a qualitative paper on the outcomes for that court. So looking at a pre and a post to see what the outcomes were and things. I mean, the data looks really promising.
I was going to say, how'd it go? Like,
it's good.
Hold me in suspense.
No, it's really positive. I'm also part of a research team, and we publish a lot on like first responders, mental health stuff, evaluating, treating it. So.
Yeah, it's good that all this shit's in the conversation now. It seems like at least it's being taken a little more seriously.
That's
especially
what I'm saying.
When it comes to men, and men having the space to feel like they can talk about things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and in teaching police officers, like the younger officers coming up are so much more open. Like, I've had some like share a lot of their stories in the because I'm teaching in the basic academy class, and it's like the older guys, forget it. Like, that would never happen.
The culture, I would say, military and shifting. Everyone aside, all the old heads, everyone who millennials and older, who are still in not retired yet, are going to have that. There ends up, because man, the military is I don't have any cop shop experience, but with the military, it was rub some dirt on it, like you're gonna bid that. Like that, you're gonna go have a feeling, like just that whole man up thing.
And if it bothers you, you're in the wrong job.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which you could understand the need for that. Why that's a tool when you're going into battle.
Yeah, but at the same time, we're not doing no world wars anymore.
Well, not at the moment.
And also, just it's just like if you break your arm, are you going to wait to go to the doctor? No. You're going to go get it x-rayed, you're going to get it set, and you're going to get it taken care of. But when it comes to things like trauma, what do people do? They're like, it's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine.
That's right.
And then
everybody.
it becomes harder to treat.
Right.
That's what I say to all my stuff.
Becomes when you break your arm, you can't will it back to health, but you think you can do that with your brain.
Exactly.
Oh, if I've got a problem, if I've got an issue that I need to work through, I can just tough it out and I can get through this.
Yeah.
Because it's weakness if I need help.
Yeah, and even as this paradigm has shifted, right? We still, people still, I think, feel that way, that it is somewhat weakness if you can't handle the stress and trauma of daily life. But again, we're talking about things that exceed most people's normal experience. We will all experience some type of trauma in our life, but how many people experience being shot at, being blown up, seeing their buddies blown up and shot at, or seeing other people shot and die in front of you repeatedly?
Yeah, well, that shouldn't be part of anyone's experience.
I totally agree.
You throw in the mix how different we are, and I'm going to say this every podcast, but some people eat a peanut and it kills them. You know, like everybody's so different. Some people can go to battle and see all that and come home and be relatively okay, while somebody can go through less than that and completely fall apart.
It's true. And there are certain things that help mitigate the impact of trauma. And one of those things is social support. I mean, that is massive. Like
Bing.
if you come home and you come back to a country who loves you, right? And they think that you're a hero and you have that family support at home, those are going to buffer that stress.
Right.
And that's part of what's playing against our individuals going into the criminal justice system, right? Because they don't have that social support. They're growing up in poverty, their needs aren't met, they're having all this trauma, and there's nothing to buffer that stress.
Well, and if you were growing up in certain environments, it's almost like it's like the wild, where it's dog eat dog, literally, and you're constantly in survival mode every day. Even if you didn't have direct trauma because of your household, it's trauma just being there. It's trauma daily, going to school or work or whatever.
Yeah. And what about, a kid who they don't know where their next meal is coming from? They might be wearing the same outfit every day because that's the only outfit they have. Maybe mom's going to come home tonight. Maybe dad's going to come home drunk and beat mom. And now they get in trouble because they can't sit still in school. Come on. Yeah. Like, how are you supposed to sit still and concentrate on math when you have these really big world problems at home?
Yeah.
And it's so unfair to kids. It's so unfair.
The human child is not designed to sit still for 8 hours.
Oh, that's a fact.
Just like the entire, school system aside.
Yeah, no kidding.
No, but it took us, most of our episodes of this podcast for me to land on one of the main reasons why I bounced back mentally the way I did was my support system.
Yeah.
Exactly. You literally nail on the head with that whole thing was I ended up coming out of this smelling like roses overall. I mean, I got my hiccups here and there, but I came home to not only my family, a big, huge, ridiculous family that wouldn't leave me alone even if I begged them to.
Even if you wanted them to.
Yeah, even if I literally begged them to. Tried and tested. But Jacksonville, Florida showed up for me in a huge way. Like I was given a hero's welcome. You had said that. But that was a Googleable thing. A motorcycle rally. Like it was a big deal. And I'm from Jacksonville, Florida. Gusto. But that was a huge factor in my bouncing back. I didn't want to let anyone down. There were en masse humans wanted me to do good. So I'm a fail. Okay.
Yeah. No. Contrast, like my dad is a Vietnam vet, and my dad came home to a country that hated them.
Embarrassing.
Exactly.
To say the least.
And they were blamed for all these things that had happened, and so we had a lot of negative outcomes with our Vietnam vets. I mean, that's what really started all
Shell
of this.
Shock.
Yep, that's what started all of this. The studies they were able. I mean, there was some good that came out of it, right? Recognizing the trauma of war, they launched some really big studies and did a lot of research. That's all great, but look at a difference in how your reception was versus during that era and what it made for you.
If I see that green and yellow on anything, the first things out of my mouth are welcome home, because cause if I was their age, I'd have been there. Like it wouldn't have been a draft. I'd have been there too. But just a lot of them didn't want to even go They were told their number came up. They won the lottery and had to go. And then the people who literally were forced to go come home and get spit on too, on top of the people who volunteered, put their toes on the line and said, I will protect you from whatever's coming. And then they get spit on and shit on and chastised and
blamed for something they had literally nothing to do with. They didn't
no control over either.
Right. And
there's not a reason why, there's but to do and die. They say go, we go. The bird's going, we're going. Like, they're shooting, we're shooting back. Like, we're here, we're doing it.
No choice.
Sorry. Makes me sick to think about. I'm sorry.
It's another interesting thing, Jeanine, we were talking about a couple episodes
ago. He's alive. Thank him for his service.
Thank you.
Sorry.
It might have been the episode that Tom was on. We were talking about how, everybody, there's that whole saying of like, the people that are quiet or happy or seem okay. When someone kills themselves, that tends to be the state that they're in beforehand. Is a lot of times they seem happy, and so Ty has had a serious problem with people thinking all the time because
check on your happy friends,
positive and happy person, exactly. that he clearly is just like denying himself of what's really going on inside, when in reality he just is this happy person.
Yeah, there's a lot of other warnings. Like, there are other warning signs, right? It's not somebody who's persistently happy and upbeat, right? This is a person who they were depressed. They were like, they've struggled with depression. They've had suicidal thoughts. They've been down. And then all of a sudden, and it's a sudden behavior shift. Mm-hmm. They're happy and content. And the reason it's hypothesized is because they've made that decision and that they're at peace with their choice, right?
I can understand that. I've went through a lot of suicidal ideation, and there's been times where you even reason with yourself as to that I'm a burden on my children, which is really the reason that I've stayed alive and gotten through all of it in the end. But I could imagine that weight sort of being lifted, because you don't want to kill yourself because you want to hurt yourself. You want to escape.
You're escaping pain.
Right. So if you've come to that decision, I could understand why somebody would find some peace and be able to, which is terrifying.
It is terrifying. We had one incident when I was a police officer. The guy called his own body in.
Wow.
He offed himself in a park, and he wanted kids to find him. So he called it in. He said, there's a body in the park, and then he shot himself.
Damn.
But you think like the cognitive distortions that an individual has to actually get to that point, right? Because objectively, are your kids really better off without you?
Of course not.
Objectively, no. I mean, suicide has a ripple effect. Yeah. My son's biological father committed suicide, and that ripple effect goes on forever.
Yeah.
It was never, although there's been healing, there's been therapy, there's been all those steps, like, that's not going away.
Yeah.
And his mom before him committed suicide. And I think it teed it up for him that it made it okay. This is an okay way to go out.
I've just turned it into trying to motivate myself to improve so that they could see that you can improve. You know what I mean? Like, I want them, in case they ever end up in a state like this, or they end up going through, which tends to happen sometimes. Sometimes it carries on through either them learning it from me or them through my.
Well, there's a genetic, right? We know that there's a genetic link with all kinds of different mental illness. We don't necessarily know what turns it on or turns it off, right? There's still a lot of unknowns in the brain, but we do know that there tends to be a genetic link there. And then you can have life circumstances that, again, nature versus nurture, that flips that on. And some experiences, traumatic experiences can actually cause changes at the DNA level, right? They cause epigenetic changes. We know that there's a thing called intergenerational trauma where that is passed on. Mm-hmm. They did a study with Holocaust survivors, and I'm not going to quote it exactly, but the gist of it was that offspring from or descendants of Holocaust survivors had a different stress response.
Wow.
Right. So these are generations removed.
It makes sense.
More or less.
More like a heightened sensitivity, if I remember correctly. Sorry, I haven't read that.
No, it's all right. I was just curious.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating study about how trauma is literally causing changes at the DNA level, right? Oof. So this isn't just, I feel bad, I'm sad. It's literally impacting our bodies. And we know like things that are more common in police officers: hypertension, high cholesterol, all these cardiovascular things.
Mind over matter.
Oh yeah. But
if your mind is pumping harder than it ever will, then in one of those situations, guns ablazing, all of that adrenaline cooking. Yeah, eventually it's going to rewire some synapses.
And it impacts you physically, right? Mm-hmm. It impacts your actual physical health.
Yep.
And so helping people connect those two things it's very useful. And then also just like helping people understand what's a normal reaction to stress, a normal reaction to trauma. I actually had one officer that I talked to he was not directly involved in an officer-involved shooting, but he was a witness to it. He was very, very early career. And the next few days, he was super jumpy. And he was freaked out. He's like, oh my God, I'm going to be one of those. I'm ruined. My career is over. I'm like,
yips.
Like, time out, man. Like, no, this is normal.
Breath. Yeah.
If it continues beyond like 2 or 3 weeks, now let's start talking about it and maybe get you in with somebody. But it's normal to have these reactions to stress and trauma.
Yeah.
And I don't think people really, going back to what you said, Zach, about the whole TikTok trend is I don't think people are well educated on what is normal emotion and normal human experience and when it becomes like pathological.
Yeah.
Well, and so on one side of the TikTok diagnoses coin, I'm excited that people are trying, that they're actually paying attention to stuff. Did they overcorrect? So. Hell yeah. Like, because from the whole, I was going to say a generation or two ago, drink about it until it's someone else's problem was the method. And now care about it and medicate it and diagnose it until it's not a problem anymore. Not super great, but also like he was saying about we've turned a corner. Everyone has a pulpit to talk about their mental health, and there is somewhere to go for anyone who wants to talk about it. But then, some people exercise that right and ability a little too crazily.
or they over pathologize a normal human reaction, right?
And turn it into a competition, like an award system. I've got ADHD. I got all 80 of them HDs.
All these things.
Like, look how all 80.
Look at all of them.
All ADHDs.
Yeah, I got all of them.
and people don't think about what other things could be happening, right? Like if your loved one dies, it is normal to be sad. It is normal to not want to get out of bed, to have low motivation, maybe not to eat. But what we expect is that to get better over time.
Yeah, right? Stay there. That's a problem. Extended stall pattern. Mm-mm.
Right. But it's not a problem if you're feeling these normal human emotions.
Feel the feeling. Ride it out.
But the normal reaction a lot of times in society, and this kind of connects with even people going to prison and people that have broken the law, and how people have such a callous, like, just get them out of here. Like get them. I don't want to deal with it anymore. And this is a weird example, and I don't want to. I'm not saying this to like throw shade on my baby mama, but my 21-year-old daughter said she was watching a video the other day, and it was about a 16-year-old dying or something, and they were talking to the siblings, and she started crying because she was thinking about what if my brother died and how it would hurt her. Well, her mom's response to that was, well, you just can't worry about things like that. Like, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's okay to feel. It's okay to sit with that. If it's something where you can't let go of day after day, you're crying about the same thing for a long time, you probably need to work on something. But
get help. Yeah, I tell my daughter all the time. I mean, she's 9. She's approaching the time when all the feelings are going to get a lot more complicated. But
it's a fun adventure.
Listening to your body, listening to being open to all the stuff. Like, feel the feeling. Like, please feel the feeling, because bottling it up ain't gonna do nothing. Pretending it ain't there is definitely not gonna do anything. Like, so feel the feeling. And if you need help with that along the way, I'll do what I can. Like, but I try my best to encourage her to work through the only way through it's through it.
Instead of ignoring it and pretending, oh, I'm not sad, I'm super fine. But I mean, that's like, validate the feeling. Yeah, that's really sad.
And the cycle sorry.
No, go ahead.
The cycle that I and their mother are breaking, that both of our parents did, is we will apologize to them if we jack up something. If oops, I was absolutely wrong. Or, hey, I took that a little farther than it needed to go. Or, hey, I'm the one who cranked it up to 10.
Yeah. It's incredibly powerful for kids when parents acknowledge they are not perfect.
Yep.
I still can't tell you a time my father has admitted he was wrong about something.
Same with my parents. And they're
my mom
good
has,
parents.
but they're wonderful parents.
Right,
like I said, I've already talked about how, amazing my support system was. Really, truly. They're
but
wonderful
you're right.
people.
It's like it's a generational thing.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, if you're going to be out in public, you need to be happy. You should only be pleasant when you're out in public. If you have other emotions, take that to your room. We don't cry in public. I mean, those are things that I've heard other parents say. I've heard
Cowgirls don't cry.
In my own life, it's just like, sorry, the only feeling you're allowed to feel is happiness, because those other feelings make other people uncomfortable, I think, is what it comes down to.
Go ahead.
So much of it goes back to education, and something that should be a part of early education, and a lot, not just a little bit, not just a class, not just a half a semester, but like actually like a yearly thing or something. Because I see in my own kid, and I don't always know how to navigate it, because I don't know how to. I'm pretty knowledgeable. I'm pretty emotionally intelligent, and I've spent a lot of time like looking into mental health, so I'm not completely ignorant, but I'm also not equipped to know exactly the right things to do with my kids. And sometimes I see where depression and sadness are confused, where anxiety and stress are confused, because sometimes shit is fucking stressful. That doesn't mean you're having an anxiety attack and you can curl up in a ball either. You know what I mean? Like, it's like differentiating between those things and understanding that life is hard and life is tough and nothing's handed to you and it's not always going to go your way. And also knowing when there's a limit to that, to go, okay, now I've got an issue. I need to talk to someone.
Yes.
Right. And I wish we did that education. I also wish that we spent more time teaching kids how to self-regulate. We all have kids, right? We've been through the toddler years. Yeah. And what is a lot of those throwing temper tantrums and screaming and yelling? It all comes down to
attention to me.
And they have big feelings and they don't know what to do with it. Right. We're leaving the park. They're so upset because they're having such a good time with their friends. And that's what's motivating, right? Or driving that later temper tantrum they have. They're not bad. It was really sad. I was in the airport the other day, and this lady, and the little girl was probably, I'm guessing, around 3, because she was pretty articulate, but little, and absolutely adorable. And she's being very well behaved. Like, they had already been flying on standby. So, she's been in the airport for a while. They'd missed one flight. And so she's sitting there, and her mom's got onto her for something. And she's doing what I call vicious whispering. When you're like kind of whispering, but the tone
yelling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the little girl starts to tear up, totally appropriate. But then when the woman stopped, the little girl looks at her and goes, "I love you, Mom." And Mom ignored her and withheld that affection. And probably 10 minutes later, the little girl goes, "Mommy, I love you." And she looked her dead in the eye and she ignored her again. And it's like, you can be upset with somebody and you can be really irritated what your child's doing, but to withhold affection, to me, while not documented like child abuse, is really, really emotionally abusive.
It's emotional manipulation.
It's very damaging.
And on what planet do you think you should be doing that to a child anyways, let alone your own? And that is something I'm big on.
How easy is it though? And that's her mother making an emotional response to something she did versus making the right choice to say, "Hey, I love you too, but you know that
this behavior is not acceptable."
Right.
Yeah.
That disgusting.
But then you go back to education, right? If this is all you know and that's how you were raised, how do you know to change, right? It's kind of like parents who use corporal punishment, and I'm not here to debate what, the science says spanking your kids is not good. However, if that's how you were raised and you've never been taught differently, how do you know how to parent? We don't have parenting classes for people.
All we do is take what our parents did, try to subtract the shit we hated the most, and then we add our own shit. And then our kids are going to do the same thing. They're going to have a list of stuff they hated that daddy did.
And then they're going to try to, and hopefully they'll redo it. But that's
break
another
the cycle.
Right. But then, okay, now these are people, like, in the criminal justice system, this is probably not going to be a shocker to you. Individuals with like lower IQ or lower functioning and autism are overrepresented.
Yeah.
Not surprising, right?
No, not surprising whatsoever.
So now you take somebody who maybe is not as high functioning as we are, and they don't think about, oh, I didn't like that mom did that. And they can't connect mom spanking them with how they felt. You know what I mean? So they don't even know that they should change.
Man, it's an interesting problem, because again, it seems like society is just ready to throw people away to get them out of the way so they don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And going back to what we were talking about earlier, the frontal lobe for males doesn't develop till you're 25 years old.
That's both. That's all.
I thought
all
it was
humans.
earlier for women that it was.
Not really. It's really. I mean, 25 is an approximation.
25,
but essentially, about that time frame is when the prefrontal cortex finishes developing, and that's like the manager in the brain. That's your top-down control.
Yeah.
The emotional centers of the brain in adolescence develop faster, which is why you see all those lovely behaviors that drive us all crazy as parents.
Yeah, right. They get the emotions way before they get the thoughts.
That's right. That's right. Way before they have that top-down manager to say, yo, I know you feel like punching him, but maybe let's not punch him.
That's real dumb that they let the ponies run wild for a few years before they put someone in charge of the warehouse.
It's interesting you say that, but the very thing that makes adolescence so frustrating is the thing that primes them for learning and also rehabilitation. Because the brain is such a plastic time for the brain, and that sensation-seeking, risk-taking behavior is also important for them to try new things, right? Like, I've never played basketball, but I'm 16 and screw this, I'm trying out for the basketball team. It's those same things that make them so annoying. Also makes them very amenable to change. And that's why this idea of locking up 18 and 19-year-olds for the rest of their life, to me, it's wild. And the demarcation of an 18-year-old being an adult is so arbitrary. It is so arbitrary.
It's just a fucking number that you chose. You're right.
That's exactly right.
But it is a pretty crazy thing. I meant to get to that earlier, where it's like, if you have someone that's capable of murder, which that's a silly way to put it. We're all capable of murder, but you have someone who has committed a murder,
who's actually done it.
There needs to be, obviously they need, something needs to happen. You can't just sit and send them back out. But a fucking kid, man, whose frontal lobe's not developed, making a mistake, which every single one of us have done numerous times when we were that age, and probably still now, like to put them away forever is just. But my other question to you, and you might be able to answer this even more. When someone's 18 and they go to prison, let's say that you put them in for 30 years and they come out when they're 40. Does it really rehabilitate them? I mean, they're in there with a bunch of other pieces of shit, people that have done terrible things that are
criminal
now
trade school.
And there's the whole thing in the prison where there's the fucking who's in charge and what team are you on and all this crazy shit.
It's very punitive and not very rehabilitative. I mean, do they have access? Depending on what your security threat, like where your classification is, right? Do they have access to schools and classes and education? Yes, they can have access to that. They can also work for pennies on the dollar if they want, right? We have that kind of stuff. But do I think it's truly rehabilitative? I would argue that the programs in prison are not as quality as what I would want to see to really rehabilitate people. Because what do you want to? You would want to change, if somebody has a whole list of trauma that they've dealt with, right? We want to address that trauma. We want to get into like cognitive behavioral therapy and help them to understand the connection between their thoughts and their feelings and their behaviors. If they're not educated, we want to get them educated. One of the things that the parole board required when you got out, if you didn't have a GED or diploma, is you have to get a GED with no thought towards, is this person capable of a GED, right? Mm-hmm. If you have a 65 IQ, are you likely to be successful in the GED?
I doubt
Probably not. Yeah. Right? So how fair is it that they're
completed fifth grade, here's a GED.
Right. I mean, it is not, like you said, right? We need individualized programs for people that look at what are you capable of. And the other thing is you would have better outcomes. So I do not think that and granted, I'm no expert on prison programs. I'm involved with Pathways to Hope, but certainly no expert on that. On the prison and what they have, but I would definitely argue it is not a rehabilitative situation.
Could you say the thing you're affiliated with again, please?
Pathways to Hope.
Pathways to Hope.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, I know you didn't say what I heard, so.
Okay.
I play What Do You Think I Said with my deaf friends all the time, so I thank you for clarifying that.
I have a hypothetical question, but before that, I want to say that a minute ago I referred to everyone in prison as a piece of shit, and I did exactly what I was calling society for doing. So I apologize for that statement, because that's really kind of what we're trying to represent here, is that that's not the case always. if let's pretend that there's a scenario where everybody in prison has an individual person that's really putting the time into trying to rehabilitate them. Do you think everyone is capable of being rehabilitated? Or are there certain people that there's just no hope in bringing them back?
I mean, do psychopaths exist, right? That is a thing. Psychopathy is a thing.
Right.
I mean, if I had unlimited funding, unlimited resources, do I think I could rehabilitate everybody in some form or fashion and help them improve in some way? Yes. Do I think I could make every single person a functioning member of society? No.
Okay.
Also, I imagine, like addiction, they would have to be susceptible to receiving help and or doing some changing. And
that's right. And that's right.
I've seen people in interviews and such that were so happy about their work and, only bummed that they got caught. And,
Yeah. I mean, do those people exist? Yes. Are there people out there that
evil
are okay with victimizing people, are okay with taking advantage of others?
Right.
Yes, 100% yes. But I think a large portion of our prison population,
the majority,
people, are good people, right? Who did bad things.
Or were in such a bad situation, they had to do a bad thing.
Right. I have never, in all of the individuals I've sat across from, including individuals who are on death row with their last appeal, like their date is scheduled, okay? They have a death date. I have never felt unsafe, ever. And I see people unrestrained because we have to do testing and I have to be able to manipulate the test materials.
Right.
I've never felt unsafe. And a lot of the times, what I've read about them, like the offense report and things like that, it's honestly hard to reconcile with the person sitting across from me who is polite, respectful. I had one young man, he came from inner city Dallas. He had gang involvement. And he said, he dropped the F-bomb. And he looks at me and goes, "Oh, ma'am, I am so sorry." And I'm like, "Dude, you're fine. Like, we're good." But I also have a knack, my business partner and I both, we're really good at establishing rapport with individuals, of all different makeups. And I take that, again, I feel like it's a gift, but it's also, I get so much more from that interaction.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm the first person who's ever treated this individual with respect.
Like a human.
You're a Mr. or Miss. It's yes or yes, whatever the case may be, but it's always a respectful interaction. And I'm also asking them to tell me the most painful parts of their life.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes there are some individuals who are just like, they will continue to defend the parents till the day they die, even though I have a book of CPS records that shows they were terribly abused.
Mm-hmm.
Some will talk about it. Sometimes you'll watch this 18-year-old, huge tattooed, kid break down in tears. And that's, to me, is humanity, right? That's the humanity part of this.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's an interesting issue. It's always been interesting to me because, like I said, there's an empathy I have for people that end up in trouble.
Yeah.
And not because I've been in trouble and I've not committed any particularly horrible crimes in my life other than maybe driving with expired plates or other nonsense like that.
Yeah.
Nothing malicious or violent.
Right. So it's not a connection with my own life as much as that I'm just like, I just don't think people are just either bad or good. But I do often wonder about certain things like if you have schizophrenia or even NBD or you're a sociopath, or there's so many different things where it's like, are those people even capable of, it almost has a mechanism built in to keep them from realizing that they might have that.
Yeah. When you talk about schizophrenia, one of the hardest things with individuals with schizophrenia is getting them to stay med compliant. The medications have horrible side effects. Some of these individuals have zero insight. They do not recognize they have a mental illness. And so they don't see a need for medication. So that's very challenging.
Comes from
keeping them, helping them to choose wellness, right? How do you convince somebody that is so convinced they don't have a mental illness that no, you actually do?
Yeah,
and that's a symptom of your mental illness, by the way.
Right.
Yeah. One of the key ones is you're going to say, nuh-uh.
Yeah, and that's really difficult. You do have people who score high in psychopathy who are very successful in life and never get arrested for anything. You have other individuals who are high in psychopathy and they're absolutely in prison where they need to be. But, it's interesting when you look at the adolescents, going back to that, even adolescents who commit murder, that is not a good predictor of recidivism. So even if they commit murder and there's no judicial involvement at all, it's not a good predictor of reoffending as they get older. Psychopathy, because personality is really not fully formed by the time you're 18. Even those who scored high in things like the callous and unemotional traits, that was not a consistent predictor of later recidivism. We do, you can do a violence risk assessment on an individual once they're in both the juvenile and the adult population. And there are certain factors that you can never say whether this individual in front of you would reoffend, right? You can't do that. But you can say, hey, other individuals who have a similar score at the 5-year mark, this percent recidivated, or at the 10-year mark, this percent recidivated. I mean, we do have good science to back that stuff up. But there are still interventions you can do, right? So if they're mentally ill, we get them treated. If they're a substance user, we get them treatment for substance use.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't have housing, we're trying to get that taken care of. If they don't have stable support, that's another place you can intervene.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like so many things, and it's just another preventative thing that we don't seem to pay attention to, is that if we were able to squash the amount of money, the amount of money that the bottom half of the population has, like if poverty wasn't so common, that a lot of crimes would disappear.
Yeah. I mean, they would, if your basic needs are not met, right? Things might bother you a little bit more. You might be a little more, willing to fly off the handle. You might be more willing to carry a gun. Or if you're in a violent neighborhood, right? I see people, they'll get charged with felon in possession of a firearm, but they're like, okay, I recognize I'm breaking the law, but the other option is that the potential for being victimized. Yeah, I'm not safe.
Dying sounds like no fun.
Right, but at least if I get arrested, I'm going to prison.
Take it from me. 10 out of 10 would not recommend.
Not recommend. Yeah.
But everything from burglary to selling drugs to other things that people do because of lack of money, lack of having enough.
Yeah.
There's so many things that could be curbed from that alone.
I mean, look at grocery stores that are locking up just razors and shampoo and baby formula.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Most stolen.
If you're stealing baby formula, why are you stealing baby formula? Clearly, you're in need of baby formula.
Exactly. And the whole idea, well, they can just get on WIC or whatever. Well, they have to know that, A, it's out there. Then they have to get access to the services. Then they have to go through the government bureaucracy to get those services. That's not an easy task.
Brutal.
And then you have the cliff, right? Of what we call the welfare cliff. If you make $1 too much, you lose all your benefits. Right. So maybe you got a raise at work and it was enough. I mean, that's great. You got $1 raise. You worked so hard, but you lost $1,000 in benefits.
Right.
There's how do you incentivize people? You know what I mean? It's not that I think this idea of like, they're just lazy. Yes, they do. You're lazy. They don't want to get this. They don't want to work. And it's like, no, these people, I think the large majority of people do want to work and they do want to contribute.
Be a functioning portion of society.
But again, it comes down to that crap. It comes down to incentive, because I mean, I've seen some studies where they talk about where the father in Black community especially started not being as present in the homes, which is like a serious problem for their whole entire culture. But a lot of that happened when we really started with welfare, where it paid for the mother to not have the father in the home and have his income, where it was easier for her just to have kids and stay on the system.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with that research by any means, but I do know that, like I said, with regards to, losing your benefits because you got that $1 an hour more. Same thing like you were talking about with Social Security. That's people on disability. I have a friend who's on disability, and he's like, okay, if I go to work for this amount, I'll lose my disability and I can afford to live. But if I only make this amount and I lose my disability, well, now I can't afford to live. So he turned a job down and he desperately wants to work.
Right.
But he had to turn that second job down because it was like, I can't lose that and only make this.
It's actually going to make me I'm going to have less money and be gone working all the time. Why would I do that?
Yeah. And I think, and then, I mean, you talk about people who have, lots of kids and all of that. And I mean, you need easy access to birth control and sex education. And we don't do that, especially in Texas, right? We're not doing that. And if you don't know those things because you weren't educated on them and you don't know where to get birth control or how it works, what do we expect to happen?
Yeah.
We expect exactly what is happening, right?
Babies everywhere.
It's also just a cultural thing. I mean, the music, the social media, and how sex is just everything's over sexualized.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just not
across
a good
all cultures and I mean everything, right?
Exactly.
It's you know,
it's not a good recipe.
No, and Ty, you've got a 9-year-old daughter. Like you're going to be having these conversations. You're going to be having them way before you think you will.
Yeah,
which is kind of wild, but also their access through social media is so different. You can be looking up something totally innocent, and yet the feed is populated with things you're like, I don't actually want my 9-year-olds to see that. Why is that even there?
Yeah,
well, yeah.
So I think our kids are exposed to.
That's it. That's all she messes with.
Our kids are exposed to more than we ever were. And to be totally fair, I don't know what like our teen pregnancy rates are right now or anything like that. But
I don't either.
I can't imagine they're better.
Yeah,
it's not good. It's not good.
Yeah, I can't imagine it's better.
But it goes, and it also goes back to the algorithms we were talking about earlier, where I was talking about watching the dog videos. Like, you can click on one dog video, and now dog videos are popping up. You accidentally click on something, you know what I mean? Like, you don't see it, and now it's in their algorithm.
Yeah, and now it's going to feed it to you, right? Yep. Now that might be fine for us, right? We're adults. We have fully functioning brains. We can go, hey, I'm not interested in that. I don't want to see that.
Mm-hmm.
But now let's take a kid who's like, oh, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
And now it's filling their feed.
Well, and I think we've done a good job. Again, me, their mother and stepfather. I think we've done a really good job of not scaring her, but she is scared of the notion of someone like us finding out she's talking with someone on Roblox, or like her friends list has this many people, and this is that person, you've met that one, this is that person, and like that kind of thing, because we made sure she understood the real of why we are scared of it. Like this has nothing to do with
it's not about you.
Us being parents and trying to shit on your fun. Like horrible, terrible, filthy, god-awful people are out there. Things are out there that want to harm you and take you away from all of this and put you in a hole somewhere. Like, and that is not us exaggerating. That is a very, very real thing. Like,
it's terrifying now.
Yeah, and you can sit in your room and cry and be bored and just draw pictures and have 1930s entertainment before if I find one of these things on any of your stuff, disrespect
on any of your
disrespect Roblox and what we allow you to do on the internet once, dang it, and it's gone for a while. We're not gonna play with that.
No, and I didn't either when mine were younger. I locked my daughter's phone down. She couldn't. It was funny. She could download apps. She couldn't delete them. I let her keep her phone, but she couldn't have any type of like Snapchat or anything on it.
Yeah.
I basically bricked her phone.
Yeah.
And I promise you that was worse than if I had just taken it away. So I'm like, oh, you have it. It's right here.
Yeah.
You just can't do all those things you want to do.
And I'm allowed to go through it at all times.
Always. I never, and I'm not, I wasn't one who was like, oh, hand me your phone, but just them knowing, right?
Yeah.
That I might.
Or give me a reason. And it's not going to be a pop quiz thing. Weekly phone inspections.
Exactly.
Like, no.
Every Sunday at 5 p.m.
Like, no, they'll figure out an app that hides it all somehow.
They probably already have those.
That kind of crap. But yeah, just basically, that was the huge thing. We didn't want it to just be because I said so. Another one of those trying to break the generational curse of because I said so being the answer to anything. But
it takes more effort to explain it, right?
Big explanation of just how gross,
this is
terrifying, dark, and slimy the internet can be, dang it. Like,
it's so bad.
We've not
really
shown
an
her examples.
Place.
But it's real shitty neighborhood at all times. But you can look through windows and see cute puppy videos, but the rest of it is just hammered
real shit. Yeah, seriously.
But that was, instead of it's bad, be scared, we wanted to give her the why of it too. So
it's an important part of it. Is like if you're like teaching involves those hard conversations. It involves having that deep conversation with your kid and being honest.
Because they're going to go find answers, and if you just told them you're not going to give them answers,
Bingo.
They're going to go find the answers probably from an unlikely or dangerous source.
And now let's go back to our families who are having to deal with poverty.
Yeah.
And you've got parents, one parent, two parent, whatever, working as many hours as they can to keep food on the table. Do they have time to have those conversations?
Yeah.
Right. It's a great question.
And are they educated to have them? And this is no hit against their intelligence, but you don't know what you don't know.
Right. It doesn't. You could have a high IQ and still not know.
Yeah, and you just don't know. I mean, ask me about coding. I don't have a clue. I know nothing about coding. Right. It doesn't make me dumb. It just means I don't know coding.
The only C's I got were in high school.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So yeah. So I mean, I think that's another thing that speaks to like how difficult it must be when you are, dealing with things like food insecurity and housing insecurity. Not knowing how you're going to put clothes on your kids that are growing so fast, whether you have one or you have 10. And you're just doing the best that you can. And I see that in a lot of the kids. Like, are there a number of these adolescents that I see that do have a ton of trauma? Of course. But even in spite of that, there are some where the parents they're clearly doing everything they can and trying as hard as they can. And society just keeps throwing those roadblocks.
Yeah, and I mean, in just parenting alone, we've talked about this before, but like it is the most rewarding thing with the biggest consequence, and nobody knows how the fuck to do it. There's no book.
Most thankless job there ever was.
And you can do everything right, because I've seen that, and still end up with a kid who makes really bad choices.
Yep.
Because I've had adolescents from very privileged backgrounds, no abuse, nothing in their background to be like, oh, I see how you got from point A to point B.
Right.
And to be honest, those bother me so much more.
Yeah.
That bothers me so much more because I'm like, how did your trajectory do this? Mm-hmm. Whereas your individual who did deal with poverty and all these adverse childhood experiences, and then they end up involved in the criminal justice system, you're like, okay, I can see how this happened. But the others, I'm like, why are we here?
Right. Yeah, it's confusing. But I guess, but again, like, it goes back to the peanut,
Yeah,
and I came from a happy home. We didn't have a white picket fence, but as close as it could come from. I privileged is a popular word, but also it is. After my 20s, I got a life sentence of my own. It's hard sometimes to hear it's the environment, it's this, it's society, it's that, it's this, it's that, it's this. Yeah. Dad beat the shit out of me. Mom never looked at me. School sucked. The man's holding me down. That kind of thing. And I'm not calling anyone anything with this, but at a certain point, my brain is kind of like, also, that all is technically overcomable. Like, and some people use it as an excuse a lot. Just like the whole thing we're talking about with overdiagnosing and I know me and I know my emotions and I'm emotionally intelligent. It becomes a competition of who has it worse. Like, it becomes who's struggling the most, and look at me struggle with this much crap, and woe is me, and look at me, and attention only. And
you know what I find in the population that I work with is that's not the story. They're not telling you, oh, I'm like this because of X. That's not, they don't make that connection.
Interesting.
They're not using it and saying, well, I committed murder because of all of this litany of abuse.
I like that's probably not the right way to say that, but I guess I'm glad to hear that it's not a constant that's not a common trope in your world.
Oh my God, no. It's more of like this. In fact, some of them relate these experiences to me like, well, everybody has these experiences. Yeah. This is normal. And you're like, actually, that's patently abnormal.
Yeah. That's axiomatically incorrect, sir.
Right. And so I'm okay with the term privilege. We did a really interesting exercise when I was in my doctoral program, and it was a privilege walk. And I'm like, and not one time was race brought up or sex. Okay. But it was things like, and I don't remember the exact stuff, but the things that stood out to me were things like, did you have books in your home? Think about that, right?
Yeah.
So I did not grow up. I mean, I grew up pretty poor. Parents very hardworking, but you know what my parents are? They're still married. right? I had a very stable home. I had extended family close by. They went to my school events. We were involved in extracurriculars at school, right? So did we have money? No. Was I privileged? Yes, I was. And I'm okay with that. But it's so easy to stand up on like a soapbox and be like, well, if you wanted to, you could pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Not you. No,
I was just making sure. I wasn't saying that for the record.
No. But
okay,
I mean,
just making sure. Sorry.
I think that's such a common thing for people to say. Well, if they wanted to do better, they could. And it's like, but there's so many societal factors that are preventing them from it.
I would say enough roadblocks equals I'm not getting to my destination. I totally understand that.
Or learned helplessness. Right?
Exactly.
Like, I keep trying, it never works. Well, I'm just going to give up.
Woe is me. Again,
it's not even just the societal factors. You still have to consider IQ. You still have to consider.
That's right. Our innate ability.
So many things
everything.
Of just your individual person on whether you can come through that stuff.
Right. And whether you can overcome it. And like the point you made about one peanut can kill somebody because they have a peanut allergy. Well, if you've teed up over the years of all of that abuse that you've dealt with, and now you have a car wreck, right? And the car wreck objectively is not that severe, but now your car's in the shop, you have no way to get back and forth to work, you're having a hard time getting a rental or you can't afford a rental. Now, all of a sudden, this objectively not serious crash has created a crisis in your life, and you might lose your job and you can't put food on your table. Do you see what I'm saying? Like objectively, this event wasn't much, but
it
just derailed your whole life.
There's a phrase: the straw that broke the camel's back.
Exactly.
There's so many people living in that space too, where they're one bad event away from everything falling apart.
That's right. They're paycheck to paycheck, and something as simple as a flat tire can mean I can't get to work, I lose my job. Now I can't put food on the table. I'm going to get evicted. I mean, and it just spirals out of control.
Right.
So, I mean, even in Texas, there was an article it's probably been a few years now about lending below I-30, south of I-30. I encourage you to look that article up.
What is it?
Lending below I-30.
Lending below I-30.
About how
the road.
Yes.
Okay.
So like
Interstate 30. Okay.
Correct. So like, let me see if I can remember what news article. I think it was WFAA, but
I'm gonna type it in here and just save it.
He's gonna get that for you there.
It was called Banking Below I-30, below 30. And it was talking about redlining, which was a discriminatory practice to limit financial services to individuals in certain neighborhoods. This is recent.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Or, let's just talk about the credit system, right? If you don't have credit, right? How hard is it to get that first credit card, that first car loan, things like that, right?
Yeah.
It's tough. But things like paying your utilities on time, that's not helping your credit score. Paying your rent on time, no, not helping your credit score. So then, now I can't get credit to buy things if I don't have the cash up front to buy it. I mean, and this is what I'm saying, like there's just so many factors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is such a multifactorial thing.
And they're just trying, I just saw a thing, they're working on changing it, at least in, I want to say Florida, but where the, you being able to pay this much rent will now actually equate into the lease on a home or whatever. Like it used to be,
like would help.
You can't afford, this $1,800 a month lease, like because X, Y, and Z. And like, does it not matter that I was paying more than that in rent? That was a thing for a long time, I guess. And that they're working on flipping that to where it'll go, like that'll actually equate into that equation, which is exciting.
Yeah. Which is really good. Or like, how do you come up with a 20% down payment on a home when you're paycheck to paycheck? Barely. I mean, so again, like those are just some of the high level societal stuff. And then the lack of access to healthy food, nutrition is a factor. The lack of access to quality early childhood education, that's a factor. These are all things that can help mitigate different childhood trauma.
Oh, yeah. Connecting, first off, I feel like, to do well at life, you really need two things: work hard and be a good person. They're pretty simple things. But the problem that we have is both talking about when someone fucks up their life and commits a crime at 18 years old and ruins the rest of their life. You can do the same shit to yourself financially. You make the wrong decisions at this small point in your life, which is seems to bend you in a certain direction forever. It's not that you can't work hard and get out of it, but it's easy to fall into a trap when your brain's still squishy.
God, yes.
Student loans.
And society is so unforgiving of that, where the mentality is just suck it up, like stop being a bitch. Like, it's not that simple, man.
I would say.
And I think. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that. Well, mine's just we would laugh at Schmuckatelli when he went and got a new Charger with 38% APR and was proud of himself.
I did great.
I get a student loan is far more expensive, but like, yeah, those are. That's a crazy one. That like you signed a contract just like I signed to join the military, just like any other contract. You signed it. Like, were you ill informed? Probably. Like, did anyone tell you how long it was going to take you to figure it out? Maybe not. Like, or you just thought you'd wing it after you got your liberal arts degree, but like,
or nobody told you, hey, this degree like
doesn't equate to
correct.
Horrible investment. Go for this instead.
Yeah,
that's a great hobby. You can, once you get a good job in this field,
right,
maybe take classes on that as a hobby.
My husband has a degree in geology. He's 19 and has been.
He just likes rocks.
I'm only laughing at this because I was just waiting for my time to say that my stepdad has a geology degree.
I would say, how autistic? Real autistic.
I mean, he's really cool to hike with, though, because every time we go, it's awesome. He's identifying the rocks and the formation, right. So it's very educational. But he recognized rapidly that he wasn't even making money doing it.
Oh, look, there's trilobite fossils over here.
That's hilarious. I was saying, you're someone who clearly likes to learn with all your degrees, so that's y'all.
I mean, I do. I'm a super nerd.
I love it.
And a voracious reader.
Ooh, I would say your vocabulary has been just the whole time.
My stepdad has fallen into this thing where he goes to like thrift stores and he buys shit and then he sells it on the internet for much more money. Like, he's just a genius at this shit.
That's amazing.
Oh yeah, you're selling this for only that?
So I call him up the other day, or I text him and I'm like, what have you been doing? He goes, oh, I got a new job. And I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm the sorter 3 days a week at Goodwill. And he goes, talk about a fox in the hen house.
Yeah,
that is hilarious.
Labeling all the highest stuff as like 25 centers.
That's so funny.
So he's literally
inside
using
trading.
A geology degree to store.
Inside trading.
It's so funny.
I like it. We're talking about criminality here on this podcast. I feel like that's flirting with a line or something. I don't know.
That might be more ethics, but it's
there we go. Morals and ethics. You're right. Might not play with legalities specifically.
Just ethics.
Funny.
Yeah, we let kids sign for all these student loans, right? And take out hundreds of thousands of dollars, whatever the case may be, without saying, okay, you want to do your degree in this, and that's wonderful. And now let's talk about the job opportunities you could have with that degree.
Right.
Those are conversations I had with my kids. Mm-hmm. You'll have them with your kids. I'm sure you've talked about this. But most places aren't.
Yeah.
Right? The college, their advisor at the college is like, yes, you absolutely want to do this. It's the best degree ever.
We help with job placement. Everybody gets a job in this field. They just want you.
It might be at Starbucks, but whatever.
Both of mine can go to any Florida school for free. So
yeah, that's a win.
I was gonna say,
but I mean,
I got blown up for the right state, I guess.
Wouldn't it be nice if we just extended high school a couple of years? Because all you do is repeat English and literature, and all that stuff in your first 2 years of college.
I feel like education should be more tailored for. Like, it should be more individualized. There's so much shit in school that they make them spend hours learning they're never going to need.
I was going to say,
I think it's very important to have a broad base, because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you're good at until you're exposed to it. But certainly I would love to see more individual things of like working with people's natural abilities. I did have an opportunity to do a disability evaluation back when I was in my master's program. And this young man was like, he was going to be an architect. That was what he wanted to do. Is his dream. Everybody's like, you can do whatever you want, right? He had a 70 IQ. You cannot do whatever you want. You are going to be limited by your capacity. You're a musician, okay? I used to be able to read music many, many years ago. It doesn't matter how much I sing. I am not a singer. I am not a good singer, right? So you can't be whatever you want to be.
Just bad.
You know what I'm saying?
I
Like, we
can't
all
be
have
a
our,
sprinter.
there you go.
I lack the necessary equipment for this activity. I mean, it's that simple.
Only
really.
in a traditional sense, right?
It's literally
Can we
that simple.
improve, right? Could I get voice lessons and maybe get better? But I'm still going to be limited by my natural ability,
Right?
and it's similar with IQ. Now, granted, IQ is a construct that is somewhat limited in how we evaluate it, right? So the way the United States, how we conceptualize of IQ in the US, how we measure it here, is not necessarily applicable to people who live in, say, Africa, or people who live in Iceland or Germany, or, you know what I'm saying? So it's not necessarily applicable. It's kind of like that whole, if you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree, you're going to think it's done its whole life.
Yeah.
I literally was just looking up that Einstein quote. Einstein quote where he said everybody is a genius.
That's important. So how we conceptualize of intelligence is important in our education system, in our higher education system, but it's not necessarily the end all be all. You know, but your 70 IQ is not going to be an architect. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen unless you're a savant like in math.
That's just true. But I think across,
and people do have strengths and weaknesses. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Across between both of y'all said, though, another year or something, but like in high school, start converging into your trade or whatever.
Yes.
What
are you good at? What do you have
freshman
aptitude
year,
to?
do all the base high school stuff and aptitude testing and like aiming for what you think you might like, but these are your aptitudes. So now choose something that falls into those lanes. Like,
and you can continue to refine that, right? Like,
and
I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up at 18. Who does?
But then those particular funnels, maybe even at the end, if you the ones who are trying to do this, maybe it'll get like streamlined to these kinds of schools, like for college and so on and so forth. Not so much the giver where everyone is designated, like like Michael Phelps should have been designated to be a swimmer, but if we force everyone to be all the same shit, I'm sure we've missed a lot of Michael Phelps's, like Phelps's.
Well,
how would you pluralize that?
But how many people don't have access to this stuff? Like,
but you know what I'm saying? Like, they did a breakdown of his body. He was physically designed for swimming. Like,
and he found his niche.
Yeah, exactly. Like, not everyone is Simone Biles either. Like, not everyone did realize that they could do more flippies better than everybody. But
she is something to watch.
Part of you wants to be like, put everyone in what they're designed for. But then but then the being destined to be that, and you don't want to. But I just want to dance, like, you know, like just.
Then you be the best mediocre dancer ever.
But just in general, something
but I think
that helps aim children better.
Yeah,
more individualized. That's how you get the Australian break dancer.
God, ray gun.
Remember that chick?
Oh my God. That was embarrassing.
The one in the green. You didn't see that in the Olympics?
Oh, good. Yeah, look up Australian breakdancer.
Yeah,
the Olympics. The first year breakdancing's in the Olympics.
This Australian girl who had a degree in dance or something went to represent Australia in the Olympics and couldn't dance at all.
I got 4 joints.
Craziest
maybe
shit ever.
5, and I could break dance way better. It was embarrassing. And then there's a whole thing where it turned out that like she kind of swindled the whole thing. Like she made the breakdancing community in Australia, and the person who helped nominate her to be the one to do it was a board member, which was her husband, which she put on the board. And it's just there was a whole thing after the fact. But she hurt breakdancing's chances of staying in the Olympics for sure.
There is that.
It was it sucked for people who like breakdancing.
It was to such a degree that I saw several people on Halloween wearing the green jumpsuit went as her for Halloween.
She was a meme. She was absolutely a phenomenon for a little bit there.
You'll figure out I don't watch much TV.
No,
that's probably why I missed all of them. So now I have to go. I'll go look that up.
Black eye for Australians everywhere, basically.
That will be what I watch.
Name Ray Gun.
That's so fun.
Ray Gun. I want to say Rachel, but Ray Gun is her breakdancing name.
Love
her call sign, if you will. Yeah, what we're describing, it's less awesome. I
can't wait to see it now.
Well, we're up at almost at the 1.5 hour mark.
Yeah.
I feel like we've gotten to a bunch of stuff, but I also feel like we could go 3 more fucking hours and still get the stuff.
Yeah, we can always do a follow up in the future.
We'll definitely have you back on at some point.
That'll be fun.
But do you have any saved rounds that anything you were hoping to get to that we didn't cover? That
No,
can't wait till part 2.
I love talking about the adolescent brain development and about how trauma impacts. I think we do a lot of, and I'm certainly not minimizing a crime victim's experience by any means.
No.
But I think we talk a lot about victims of crime, and we don't really talk about what's behind the scenes in the defendants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I think it's an important conversation to have, and I like having it because when we humanize people, I think it helps us to have empathy.
I think that's really
and
important.
To recognize that there's a person behind the charge.
It's way too easy to just make that person a monster and forget about them or hate them.
Yeah.
So
but
it's very easy to vilify people.
Right. And that's not the
easy to do
answer.
that. Nope.
And I think the more empathy we have, the more we can move society towards trying to remove or lessen some of the roadblocks that keeps people down.
I agree.
Which would be rad.
It
What
would.
a great episode, guys. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you guys so much.
I was going to say, what were the organizations again?
For what?
You said several along the way. Pathways to Hope.
Pathways to Hope. That's helping offenders pursue excellence.
And then were there any other links or companies or charities or anyone that you work with that you'd want to do a shout out for?
Definitely for Pathways to Hope.
Just making sure.
Oh, also, you know what? There is another one, Bridging the Gap. They are working in the Dallas area to provide mental health treatment to underserved populations and working to create a network of clinicians who have experiences and cultural backgrounds that are similar to some of these underserved populations. So
cool.
They have an annual gala in February. I can send you guys that information, but it's a really, really awesome organization doing great things here.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. If anything pops up that you want us to shout out, we're always willing to do that for you. Or if you want to hop on for something, just hit us up.
Thanks, guys. Well, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was an interesting conversation. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe, all that shit. You know the drill.
Yeah.
And we're glad you are still fucking here.
Right on.